Thank you guys so very much. I'm thrilled to be here. This is my first time to Austin, and and I'm so happy. And I have already met so many old friends and new. I look forward to meeting more new friends tonight at that party, so please do come so we can talk more there. I'm just curious, how many people here have seen The Story of Stuff? Ooh, a lot. That's great. And well, for those who haven't seen, let me just tell you, it is a 20-minute look at where all our stuff comes from and where it goes. That doesn't sound that interesting, but it really is a good 20-minute film. So check it out at storyofstuff.org. Now, at the beginning of The Story of Stuff, you know, we run through this process of where stuff comes from: extraction, production, distribution, consumption, and disposal. What that film does in 20 minutes, I basically do constantly all day long. That's why I'm kind of going like this a lot. That's what happens if you really do spend 20 years. I said 10 years in the film because I thought people are going to think I'm weird enough, but I really did spend 20 years traveling around the world looking at the factories where our stuff is made and the dumps where our stuff is dumped. And so what happens when you do that is you develop this weird kind of neurosis. Whenever you look at something like this computer, I can't help it. My mind runs through this set of mental images of like the mines in Africa where the metal was extracted, and the chemical factories in Gujarat where the plastic was synthesized, and the factories in China where it was all put together, in the rainforest in Indonesia or Canada where the fiber was taken to make the packaging. And I just am constantly, I'm sort of stumbling along like that. I always have to tell my mother, I'm not stoned, I'm stunned. It's like, it's a stunning way to go through the day. Now, I'm not complaining. It is, if you're going to have a neurosis, it is a fascinating neurosis to have, and I really recommend it. One of the ways you can trigger it is by going to dumps. That's what I love to do when I'm in a new town. It's fascinating. But it is stunning, and it's a little bit lonely, and that's why I made The Story of Stuff. After coming back from all this travels, looking at factories and dumps, I was dismayed at how few people were thinking and talking about where our stuff comes from and where it goes. So I started experimenting with different ways of talking about it to try to turn the volume up on the conversation. And can I just say, it worked. I couldn't believe it. We made this film, 20-minute film, put it on the internet in December 2007. My goal was to get 50,000 people to see it in 10 years. We got that in 1 day. It was amazing. It's now been seen over 20 million times in every country in the world. It's kind of creepy, but it's interesting. I can actually go to Google Analytics and see a dot everywhere someone had watched it. And Central African Republic was a holdout for a long time, but now it's got a couple dots. It's like the entire world has seen it. It's been seen over 20 million times, and we've got over 250,000 emails from people all over the world who saw the film and who resonated with the message. The scale of the response surprised me, and also the diversity. There was one day recently where I was profiled in a feminist, indie, anti-imperialist Philippine magazine, and in Martha Stewart, Home Living. And the emails have been fascinating from people who say, I knew that, I just didn't know how to say it, or I didn't know how to say it that quickly, or I knew a piece of it, but I didn't understand how it fell into a whole system. All the way to people who say, I never even thought about this, and it changed my life. My favorite email actually came from Texas. I got an email from a woman who said, I am a Republican SUV-driving housewife in Texas. I wouldn't have even watched your film if I had known what it was going to be about, but it changed my life, and I cannot look at anything the same. And so then she said, I know, that's nice. But then she said, I have 2 daughters, and I take them to the mall every Saturday, and I don't want to do that anymore. What should I do with them instead? So we're facing some really big problems in this country. The bottom line big problem, though, is that our economy is simply unsustainable, the way that we have organized our economy. We are making and wasting and using and throwing away too much stuff. We are bumping up against ecological limits. We're using more stuff than the Earth can replenish and throwing away more stuff than the Earth can assimilate. Now, that's really important to realize. It's an actual physical limitation. It's not like an ideological position. So like even if you were like a big loser and wanted to continue this like toxic-based, consumer-crazed, unsustainable way of living, it's just simply physically not possible. The best overall measure of this is the Global Footprint Network. Are you guys familiar with that? It's a fascinating organization that crunches a ton of numbers to compare compare how much we're using compared to how much the Earth produces. Now, right now, we are using 1.5 planets worth of resources and waste assimilation capacity a year. Now, clearly, that is a problem because we have one planet. I was actually just gave a talk to a bunch of environmentalists. I tell you, environmentalists are so damn wonky. I gave this talk, and I said 1.5 planets, and a debate broke out. No, we're using 1.3. No, it's 1.6. I said, you guys, big picture. It doesn't matter if it's 1.3 or 1.6. Anything over 1 is a problem. We have one planet. Global Footprint Network actually measures the day each year by which we've used that year's worth of productive capacity. They call it Global Overshoot Day. And it's really scary because it's getting earlier and earlier. Last year it was September. This year it was August. So that means now, all the way until the end of the year, we're basically consuming on credit. We're eating into the stockpiles that nature had eons to develop before we became such pigs. And the bummer about that is that we're undermining the systems that are going to create next year's stuff when we're also going to have a lot more people. So it's a really big problem. But enough on that. You obviously know all about that because you are at South by Southwest Eco. And at this point, to not know about that, you'd have to be living in a cave or working at Fox News. So let's go to the next thing. So now let's talk about the good news. There is so much good news. The good news is that it doesn't have to be this way, that solutions abound. Anyone who says there is no alternative is not actually looking for one. Anyone who says that pollution is the price of progress is stuck in the 1980s. Like, that is so passé. There are so many solutions available. There's not a solution for every single problem on the planet, but there are solutions for a whole lot of them. You've been hearing a lot about them at this very conference. From energy to buildings to design to food here at South by Southwest Eco. It's so important that we all really internalize this knowledge. We have to confidently know it with every cell in our body that we can design and manufacture products to be safe and healthy and long-lasting. We can make our buildings and our communities to nurture health, to conserve energy, to nurture social engagement. We can design our economic rules to be fair. There is no physical or technical reason that we cannot have a sustainable, healthy, fair, and fun society. The reason it's so important to know this is because that confidence will help us keep going. We are really swimming against the current here because the current economy is set up so much to reward trashing the planet and each other. And for us to have that strength and commitment and energy and hope to keep moving forward, we have to know that solutions exist. So one of my favorite things to do is really read about solutions. And actually, we're right now making our next and last film, The Story of Solutions. It will be our 9th film. And I'm spending so much time reading about solutions. We have to know that they exist in order to keep going. So I just want to tell you a couple of my favorite that I'm so excited about right now. One is biomimicry. I don't know if you've heard of biomimicry. It's like, oh, good. I love South by Southwest Eco. Of course, you guys have heard of it. Biomimicry is like the mother of no-brainers. It's such an obvious thing to do. Under biomimicry, just one sec. In biomimicry, we say, let's look to nature to design our engineering challenges. You know, nature has had eons to figure out how to do stuff. Let's look at how nature figured it out. So one example is the color black. Textile manufacturers who use black have a real problem because a lot of black dyes have toxic pigments in them. So that means exposure to the workers, exposures out the effluent pipe. So the biomimicry scientists looked at nature and said, how does nature make black? And they looked at the peacock, because that peacock has all those colors and isn't emitting any toxic effluent. So they looked at the peacocks, and it turns out the black in a peacock is not actually a pigment. It's the illusion of black based on the way the molecules come together so that we see black when it is not actually there. So that is totally cool. No toxic effluents, and it doesn't even fade in the sunlight. So now textile manufacturers are copying the peacock to make black fabric for furniture and upholstery that has 0 toxic emissions. Or another biomimicry example that's fascinating are these anthills in Africa that are like as tall as me, and they stay the same temperature inside, whether it's a searing hot desert day or a really cold desert night, and they have no coal-fired power plant heating and ventilation system. It's in the construction. So now architects are beginning to study. So that biomimicry is so cool. Another one that I'm really into these days is green chemistry. It turns out that one of the reasons that we have so many toxic chemicals is that nobody was just paying attention. It wasn't like these scientists were like, ha, I want to poison unborn babies. They just didn't think about it. And so now green chemists are going back to the drawing board to design new chemicals from the molecular level to just simply design out the hazard. then you don't have to worry about worker exposure or about release into the environment because it's just simply not hazardous. I mean, I could go on and on. There are actually, you have this weekend been going on and on because there are so many sessions covering all of these things. But I'm preaching to the choir. You know, people often say I'm preaching to the choir. I just want to say there's a reason the minister preaches to the choir every week, because that is where the action is. We preach to the choir to strengthen our commitment, to hone our arguments. I'm like, I love the choir, because we are going to get some stuff done. Okay, and so let's go on to the next question here. If there are so many problems, if there are so many better alternatives, why are they not happening? Is it that people don't know there's a problem? Is that what it is? You know, that's been the assumption of the environmental community for years, so we churned out report after report, and we were looking for that one new set of data that would be the tipping point. But it turns out that it's not actually the problem that people don't know about it, that most people actually know there is an environmental problem. After decades of great public education and outreach, after mainstreaming these conversations, millions and millions of people know that there is a problem. We've had a helper in getting people to know in recent years, which is the visible symptoms of the deterioration of the planet on which we live. So whether you've read one of our reports, or you've watched some video, or you are concerned about a toy you just bought containing toxic chemicals, or you're stressed out about the drought in your crops or your air conditioning bill, for so many reasons, at this point, people know there is a problem. So if the obstacle is not that people don't know, is the obstacle that people don't care? So here's the other thing, is it turns out millions and millions of people care. Most people care. Most people value health and fairness. Most people want a clean environment and safe energy and healthy jobs. Most people want their babies born without toxic chemicals already pulsing in their blood. We are not some marginalized fringe minority here. We are most people. We really are the 99% or very close. We are the 85% of Americans who think that corporations have too much power in our democracy. We are the 74% of Americans who want stricter regulations on toxic chemicals. We are the 73% of Americans who support the EPA's ability to reduce carbon from polluting industries and utilities. These are really, really high numbers of support. On most of the issues we care about on the environmental front, we have 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% of support. This is enough level of support to make change. Just think about it. What other social movements have had that level of support? This is higher levels of support than the abolitionists had fighting slavery. This is way higher level of support than the suffragettes had getting women the right to vote. It's much higher levels of support than the civil rights movement had. Do you know that public support for Martin Luther King when he did the I Have a Dream speech was 30%? But the reason that they got stuff done is because that 30% took action. That's where the choir comes in. The choir takes action. We have way more than 30%. So why aren't we making more progress? Why aren't more people moving from a place of knowing and caring to take action? This brings me to my new favorite concept. This is a little bit wonky, and I try not to be wonky, but just bear with this, because this is a really important concept. It's non-informational barriers to change. The reason it's so important is that traditionally, environmentalists have relied on giving people more information to get them to change. We have been stuck in this myth that the truth will set us free. And so we churn out these charts and graphs and reports, and we show you our PowerPoint presentations and more information, and then we're like, they're not responding, so let's do more reports and more charts and graphs and more parts per million, and why are the people not moving? And it turns out that lack of information is not the obstacle. So what is? There is a whole set of non-informational barriers to change that are in the way between us being concerned and us taking action. And this is where we, as environmentalists, need to be focusing our attention. So what are some of them? Some of them are structural. Structures have been set up in our society that facilitate us doing the unecological thing and make it harder to do the ecological thing. So let's just look at recycling. We nag and we educate and we tell people to separate their stuff. Do you know what the #1 criteria is that get people to recycle more? If there is a curbside recycling program in their community. It's structural. If we want people to recycle, we need to make it easy. Or taking public transportation. The way the structure is set up now, often taking public transportation takes 3 or 4 times as long as driving. So rather than providing information on the benefits of recycling or the benefits of public transportation, let's change the structure so that the new default, the new easy thing to do is the right thing to do. So I have come to believe that the most important job that we have before us, regardless of what issue we work on, regardless of where in this country or this world that we work, Our most important job is to inspire people to re-engage their citizen muscle, to re-engage with each other, with coming together to make change as active, engaged citizen change makers, to move from a place of concern to a place of action. So why is that so important? I have 3 reasons why that is so important. The first is that it is by working together as engaged citizens, by struggling together, that we learn how to be citizens and that we strengthen our citizen muscles. And that's how we are going to build the power to win. This is not some theoretical exercise in the moral validity of good citizenship or something like that. This is because we actually want to win. We want to build a society that is healthy and safe and sustainable and fair. And the only way we are going to do it is by engaging together. So first, it's about winning. The second thing is that by acting together as engaged citizens, we can shore up our democratic structures and systems. It is not just our bridges and roads, not just our physical infrastructure that is deteriorating from decay and neglect in this country. It is our democratic infrastructures as well. And by using them and engaging them, not only will we advance whatever it is that we care about right now, but we're going to be re-engaging those systems so that they can be more responsive and more accountable to the people that come behind us. It's like, I live in Berkeley, and you always see this bumper sticker there that says, we can thank the labor unions for the weekends. Well, I feel like future generations will thank the engaged citizens for wresting back our consumer-frenzied culture and corporate money-marinated democracy so they actually are by the people, for the people, of the people, yet again. And finally, the third and maybe the most important reason to be an engaged citizen making for change is because it adds meaning and joy and friends to our lives. And you all here this week are proving that. Working together feeds our souls. I know this from my own life, but there's also a lot of academic studies that back this up, that have found empirical data that proves it. There's a whole field of happiness studies. And it turns out that what actually makes people happy, once you've reached a point, if you don't have a roof and food and probably a good book, then maybe more stuff could make you happy. But once you have your basic needs met, it is not more stuff that makes you happy. Even if it's a new iPad or an iPhone 27 or whatever they're on now, or a Nissan Leaf or whatever, it is not new stuff that makes you happy. It's very consistent across income groups, ethnic groups, cultures, ages. The things that most contribute to lasting happiness are social connections, the quality of your community, time with friends and family. It's working together with others towards a shared goal. And it's having a sense of purpose and meaning in your life. Now, what is so cool is that being an engaged citizen provides all of those things. I'm not saying every minute of making change is fun. I mean, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's cold and lonely. Actually, it's never lonely, that's not true. But sometimes it's cold and you're tired. But overall, being an engaged citizen making change is a really rich way to live. Actually, Paul Hawken said, it's not a way to get rich, but it's a way to be rich. Now, how fortuitous is that the very thing we need to take back our democracy and build a sustainable, healthy, fair society is also that which makes us most happy? Like, that is so lucky. So when we exercise our citizen muscles and we model this to other people, we are inviting them to join in the most delicious way to spend a lifetime. Now, this is important because that deliciousness is often missing from environmentalist messages. Often our messages are whiny and wonky and about sacrifice and nagging. So I want to ask all of you to join me in helping to reframe the environmental message. It's not about come over here and we'll all be eco-martyrs and wear sandals all year round and eat cardboard-tasting veggie burgers and nag each other if you forgot your grocery set, your hemp grocery bag when you go to the store. It's about come over here and we will work together to build the power to take back this country, to get it on a good trajectory, and we will have way more fun in the process. So what is not to like about that?